Welcome to Murder with the Missus. I'm Darren.
And I'm Amy, and today we're going to tell you about John O'Keefe.
Don't forget to smash that like button and go and check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and Facebook. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to tell your friends.
I'm going to miss that, as always.
Yeah.
Meh. All right, put your thinking caps on for this one, because as promised, here we are with the Karen Read case. It is very current and ongoing. We're keeping in line with the strange cases, conspiracy theories, and disappearances for October.
Let's talk about strange cases just for a second.
Do it.
Did you see the one where the lady went viral because her and her husband was doing a backyard project and they dug a hole for like a post and they seen like a rolled up rug? And then, what was it? All the TikTok people and everything, they was like, oh, you got to call the cops.
It went wild, yeah.
Yeah, it went wild. Well, they called the cops, and then they was like, no, we don't want nothing to do with this.
Of course.
Basically. Well, they hit 2 million followers overnight.
Dang.
Yeah. And so many people were just engaged in this thing.
Oh, yeah.
And even, I mean, obviously me too. I'm sitting there watching the stupid video,
Gotcha.
wondering what's rolled up in that rug. Well, homicide calls them. It was like, all right, we're going to look into this. We're going to send out 2 cadaver dogs.
Okay.
So they sent them out. Cadaver dogs hit. They actually sit down.
Oh.
And which is indicator saying there's something.
Right. They smell something.
So they call in an excavator, excavate it. Turns out it's a rolled up rug.
Wait, what's in it?
Some kind of rubber.
That could be anything.
Yeah, that's all they said.
But the dogs hit on
They
it.
said it was nothing. It's a rolled up rug.
They need to test it.
Rubber rolled up rug.
We need to know where it came from. We need to know who lived there before them. We need to know what the dogs hit on.
Yeah,
Test that rug.
It was like 6 days of these people having to wonder what's in this rug.
Captivating the nation.
Yeah, and
the country.
news was there. I mean, overnight, just sitting there on their place the whole time. Just doing live streaming.
We're about to catch this from the
only
beginning.
to find out it's wrapped up with the rugs wrapped up rubber.
I have so many questions.
I know, right? And I mean, and that's where it ends.
No, it can't end there.
That's where it ended.
Ah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Test that rug. Hey, people who own the rug, go have it tested.
Yeah. Why did the cadaver dogs hit?
They need to start a GoFundMe for all of us to donate to so that they can afford the testing to get this thing tested.
Or just homicide needs to go and have it tested.
I mean, okay.
And figure out why the cadaver dogs hit.
Right, because if it was just a rug down there and the dogs never hit on it, okay, I could understand.
Yeah.
It's just a rug. But you throw them dogs in there and you got yourself a case, bro.
Exactly. I mean, it's just like, why did the dogs hit? But anyway, that's just the weird things that are going on
right now.
That's
crazy.
Okay, I'll let you get back to your thing. That's just something that I seen, and I was just like, that's just odd.
That is odd.
Yeah.
I need to know.
Yeah.
I'm looking this up.
Yeah, just check it out. The way I looked it up, rug buried 2 feet in the ground.
It was only 2 feet down?
That's it. So if you want to look it up, rug buried 2 feet in the ground, it'll pop right up. You'll see it. Trust me. No tricks, none of that stuff. You're not going to get some weird website pop up or anything like that. I'm telling you, if you look it up on the videos on Facebook or anything, rug buried 2 feet in the ground, and it'll pop up.
I'm going to look at that. Look at that. See, reality is scarier than fiction.
Yep.
It's just wild. Now, this is probably going to be a longer episode too, because there's just so much shit to get through. John O'Keefe was 46 years old when he was murdered. He had been with the Boston Police Department for 16 years at this point. His grandfather was a cop, so John always knew that he would be too. And he was a good guy by all accounts and was a Red Sox fan. Same. He was at Fenway Park on opening day every year. His sister Kristen was diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor in 2013, and John was right there for her. He reportedly took her to her treatments and helped wherever was needed. Sadly, Kristen would pass away, leaving her husband Steve to raise their 2 kids. But John moved in with Steve, his niece and nephew, after Kristen passed away to help out. About 8 days later, a friend and fellow officer of John's committed suicide. Still reeling, it would tragically be about 2 months later that Steve himself would suffer a fatal heart attack. And this is a horrible chain of losses for John and also for his niece and nephew. They would not be alone though, because John would raise them.
Damn, all that in 2 months? That's
Yeah.
rough.
That's a lot.
And the kid lost both parents
Yeah.
back to back.
Yeah.
You know, how old were they?
They were about 3 and 6 at the time.
Wow.
So they were little, and then just one after another.
That's really hard on a kid that young.
So hard. That's why John took them in. John was like, they're going nowhere. They're with me. And John had met Karen Reed in 2004 at Kristen's 30th birthday party. They had a little thing, but it was nothing serious, and they both went on about their lives. And then in 2020, John messaged Karen onto Facebook, and they reconnected. This time, they were more serious. Karen said in an interview that she never really aspired to get married, so they hadn't really talked about that, but they were together. And we are going to be talking about January 28th into the 29th of 2022. Weather reports were expecting about 18 to 24 inches of snow with 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, so a blizzard. John's nephew was at a friend's house that night, and his now teenage niece had a friend over at their house in Canton. So John went out. He and a friend went to a bar, and John told Karen to come and hang out, and she could give him a ride home. According to the kids, she'd spent several nights a week at John's house anyway, so this wasn't out of the ordinary. She actually lived about 20 minutes away in Mansfield, and there are a lot of players involved, so try to remember the names.
I'll try, but I can't make any promises on this.
Yeah.
I'll be asking, like, who's that guy? Or who's this
Who
person?
was that again?
Yeah. And you'd be like, I just discussed this person.
It's okay,
Yeah.
because there's a lot, and I'm not even going to touch on everybody. I'm just going to do the main people. I'll try not to confuse any of the listeners. But Karen got to the bar just before 9 p.m. Surveillance footage from the bar shows her arrive, and John waves her over. They hug when she walks up, and everyone's in a good mood. At about 10:54, they go across the street to the Waterfall Bar and Grill. And this is where the Alberts and McCabe's are. They're already at the waterfall when they get there. You have Brian Albert, who is a boxer, former cop, and was on the reality TV show Boston's Finest, and his wife, Nicole. Karen says that John kind of wanted to impress Brian. I guess he was kind of a big deal in some circles around there. He was on that special elite squad who took down the Boston Strangler, so maybe that's why. Nicole's sister was there, Jennifer McCabe, and she had known John for several years, but no one really knew Karen very well. And Brian's brother, Chris, was also part of the group, along with Brian Higgins. Now, Higgins was an ATF agent.
So a bunch of cops in the place.
A bunch of cops in the bar.
Yeah.
And the Bryans were playboxing and shit. Like Brian Higgins and Brian Albert, they were playboxing and carrying on in the bar. So everybody said the mood was friendly. The bar closed at midnight, and the Albert's son was having a birthday party at their house already. So they invited the group back to their house to keep drinking and hang out. Now, CCTV footage from outside the waterfall shows John walk out at about 12:11 a.m. carrying one of the bar glasses in his hand. I guess he decided to take one for the road. Karen says she didn't want to go to the Alberts, but John did. Jennifer had to give John directions, but several partygoers say that they saw Karen's SUV roll up outside at about 12:15, and they say that it stayed outside for about 30 minutes. So that would mean it was gone by 12:45. Jennifer started texting John. She texts him at 12:27, calls him at 12:30, texts again at 12:31, 12:40, 12:42, and 12:45. And he never answered any of those texts.
What's she texting him so much about?
Yeah, those are like a bunch of texts.
It's probably like, where's my car?
No, so this is Jennifer McCabe. So she's already in the house. This is the Albert's sister-in-law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she's the one who gave them directions. And then when she saw them parked outside, she's like, texting him, where are you? Park behind my car. Like she's texting him all these things. And then hello, trying to find him because he's obviously been there, but then he never showed up in the house. So she seems like she really, really wanted him to be there though, because that's some dedication to try to get somebody in that house. According to the reports, Trooper Proctor said that later that day when they questioned Karen, she told them that she dropped John off. She didn't see him go into the house. She made a 3-point turn in the road and then went to John's house. And John does have a camera above the garage that shows the driveway, but there's no footage showing her get back to his house. But phone data does show that her phone connected to the Wi-Fi there at 12:36 a.m. At 4:53 a.m., John's niece called Jennifer McCabe, saying Karen was distraught because John hadn't come home. He wasn't answering his phone, and Jennifer said that she could hear Karen in the background screaming that they had a fight, and he didn't come back. Karen went out looking for him, and there is camera footage from the driveway of her leaving. She picked up her friend Carrie Roberts, and they came back to the house at the time that Jennifer McCabe was arriving. Then all three went out to look for him, and prosecutors pushed that while searching, Karen was saying, "What if he's dead? What if a plow hit him? I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much. I don't remember anything."
Sounds like she's really high strung.
That's putting it nicely. She's very, I don't even know the word to describe her, but high strung's good. We'll go with that. But at 6 a.m., Karen, riding in the back seat, yelled out that she sees him when they come up to the Alberts house. He is out by the road, and he has about 6 inches of snow on him. I believe it was on his legs mostly. He wasn't covered, or they wouldn't have been able to see him. He reportedly has blood coming from his nose and mouth, and his eyes were swollen shut. He's also missing a shoe. There is blood around him and broken glass. Karen calls 911 at 6:04 a.m., and when first responders arrive, they see the three women, Karen waving them down, and Jennifer and Carrie doing CPR. An emergency responder says Karen was hysterical and yelling, "I hit him," over and over. The first responders take over working on John and get him transported to the hospital. Unfortunately, they were unable to save John, and he was declared deceased at 7:50 a.m. An autopsy was done, and according to the chief medical examiner, there were 6 bloodied lacerations varying in length on the right arm from the forearm to the bicep, 2 swollen black eyes, a cut above the right eye, a cut to the left side of his nose, a 2-inch laceration to the back right of the head, and multiple skull fractures resulting in bleeding of the brain. She also stated that there were no signs of him being involved in any type of physical altercation or fight. Heavy pause, because listening to all those, that definitely sounds like he was in a fight. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, I'm just listening. I'm waiting.
No, I know. I know. The injury, according to the medical examiner, initiated or started in the back of the head, which caused all the fractures in the skull, and the eyes got red or black or purple because of the seepage of blood from the small blood vessels. And they said he died because of blunt force trauma incapacitating him and causing him to actually die of hypothermia.
Were those all of his injuries?
That is all that they listed. No injuries to the lower half of the body.
Well, it sounds like...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's your initial...
Sounds like he got into a fight with a boxer. To me.
Is it?
That's what it sounds like to me.
Okay. Because literally all the injuries were to the head and face, except for the ones on his arm. So there wasn't even anything anywhere else.
So my thing is like, back in the day, whenever I used to have parties at my house, and your brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Always, including
he used
him.
to like do this little slap boxing shit.
Of course.
And family friend, well, y'all's family friend, he used to go up to your brother and was like, I can take you. I can take you.
Oh, God.
So week 1, he come to school with a black eye from slap boxing.
Yeah.
Week 2, his next eye was black.
Oh, my.
And he kept coming back. But
He probably thought he'd win one day.
so what I'm thinking is that this guy showed up because he was pretty impressed with these guys. And he was like, I could do this.
Now, remember, the Bryans were play boxing at the bar.
That's what I'm saying.
So they were already roughhousing and acting like...
So maybe he got in there too, and then maybe it got a little out of hand and everything else. Well, then maybe the boxer maybe went a little too far.
Interesting.
I'm thinking the boxer beat the shit out of him.
Okay.
And maybe the friend jumped in.
Okay.
So
we're looking at the Bryans.
Both
the Bryans. Okay. Now, at the scene, they were looking for evidence as to what the hell happened. But remember, there's a snowstorm happening. When they had moved his body to transport him to the hospital, they saw that he had been laying on his cell phone. It was underneath him. And they say that he had blood around his body, but they were having to dig to find anything else. Later, at about 4:30 p.m., Karen was questioned at her parents' house about 20 minutes away from Canton. And they also impounded her black Lexus SUV. They say there was a busted taillight on the passenger side, a small dent with paint missing, and obviously something had been hit. it would be about 5:30 p.m., so an hour later, that the Massachusetts State Police Special Emergency Response Team collected 2 red plastic pieces, 1 clear plastic piece, and his other Nike shoe from the Alberts yard. Well, the shoe, I think, was up against the curb. And let's talk about how they collected evidence. There was a lot of snow at this point, so they used a leaf blower to blow the snow around to try to find evidence. Remember that there was blood around him. Well, they borrowed red Solo cups from a neighbor and scooped the snow up in the cups, then transported them to the station in a Stop and Shop paper bag.
Well, what the hell?
Yeah. I don't know the proper procedure for collecting blood evidence in the snow, but I don't think it involved red Solo cups.
Well, no.
Yeah.
But the broken tail light, where'd they find that?
They found that on the scene in the yard where John's body was, like several feet away from John's body, I believe.
Well, and then wasn't she screaming, I hit him?
She, according to emergency responders.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that was placed. Like they was like told to tell that.
I am absolutely loving this right now. Yeah.
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 So.
Now through trace and.
Because that basically gave them their alibi. Anyway, go ahead.
Funny you should say that. Through trace analysis and forensic testing, they found John's DNA on the broken taillight, which was said to be touch DNA, and microscopic pieces of red and clear plastic matching the taillight on John's clothes.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Touch DNA.
Fingerprints.
He's a cop.
He is a cop.
All right.
And this is his girlfriend of 3 years' car.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so listeners, have you ever been pulled over and the cop walking up to your window ever grab the taillight of your car? You know why that is? Because that identifies that he pulled you over in case you run or hit him or shoot him or anything like that.
Right. They'll touch the trunk lid. They'll touch the tail. They'll touch
damn
something
near
that would leave it. Mm-hmm.
That damn near 100% identifies you as the suspect.
Very true.
So go ahead.
There's your daily tip from Darren. Something they did not search was the house. And this is giving me Noah Presgrove vibes. There's a party. Someone is found dead the next morning, and they don't search the last place that they were seen. Now with Noah, they said that he was found about a mile away from the property, so there was no reason to search the house. With John, they say that no one at the party saw him actually come into the house, so there was no reason to search the house. Now, make that make sense on either case. Brian Albert and his family that was inside the house that morning stayed inside that house that morning. And I say it that way because no one ever came outside. The cops did go inside and question Brian and Nicole. They didn't make them come to the station. They didn't separate them. And they said they didn't come outside to help or anything because they slept through all the commotion.
Well, why the fuck would they? I mean,
exactly.
It's their story they're covering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was just, this is another indication of the way this was investigated.
It's like, oh, you guys slept through it. Oh, that's good.
Seemed legit.
Yeah, that's good. Both of you guys cover each other. Got it.
Oh, you're each other's alibi? It's a good deal.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And normally they separate people and ask them the same questions to see if they get the same answers. But here, no, they just left them in the same room, probably the living room, big chilling.
Oh, they was able to, hang on a second. Let me converge.
It was probably more like, well, we slept till about 11, right, babe? It was about 11?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure, it was 11.
Get their game plan together while he's going. What was it, like 11? We had oatmeal, right?
Right.
Yeah. Last night? We ate that microwave pizza. Yeah, right before we crashed out. Yeah, I remember that.
When they processed the SUV, they found one hair that belonged to John on the rear side quarter panel and broken glass from the bar glass on the bumper. Go ahead. Go ahead, say it.
Of course they did. John's body was laying at their freaking residence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And where did they get Karen's car from?
Where did they get it?
From her parents' house 20 minutes away. How did that one hair and those pieces of glass stay on that car 20 minutes? Well, first she searched. Okay, we're going to get into
even
it.
that.
Sorry,
I mean, okay. But the whole thing is that she only lives 20 minutes away. They can go over there. They can break her taillight to make it look like she hit him.
They could. Yes, they could.
They could hang up some hair on the fucking taillight.
Because she has said this whole time that her taillight was not damaged.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. It's just they have plenty of time.
Yes, there was time.
There's time for them to set their story up and get it straight.
Yep. So they also tested the SUV and it was in working order. They drove it forward. They drove it backwards. They did all the things and everything was working fine. Even the backup camera with audio and visual indicators, when there's an obstruction, it'll beep and you could see it on the screen inside the car that it's almost like looking outside at noon, these backup cameras. They're really good. And this was all that they needed. Karen was arrested on February 1st and charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence of alcohol and leaving the scene of a personal injury and death.
So they say she hit him with the car.
Yep. That's what they're saying.
And just left him.
Yes, and left him. Yes. And they say she argued with John, and when he got out of the SUV, she backed up and hit him and then left him in the cold to die.
So she pulled up forward.
Well, remember, she made that 3-point turn. We'll get into it. But let's go to court. And there's a lot, but I will try to give you the important information. We'll talk about Karen's side of things, good and bad. John and Karen's relationship was not doing so well. The kids said that John was saying their relationship was at the end, but she wouldn't leave. And they had been arguing a lot more in the past couple of weeks. Cell phone records show that Karen had been texting shit and screaming into John's voicemail since she had dropped him off that night, calling him a loser and a pervert over and over. She said she hated him. Between 12:30, when she supposedly dropped him off, and 6:03, when they found him and called 911, she had called him 53 times, and not all of those were when she was looking for him. The data from her SUV says that she did make that 3-point turn like the cop said she admitted to making when leaving the Alberts house, but she had accelerated in reverse for 62 feet at 24.2 miles per hour. And that's a pretty high rate of speed in the dark in an area you don't know going in reverse. Unless you're big mad and don't give a shit. Crash expert Trooper Joe Paul testified that her hitting him at 24 miles per hour projected him more than 30 feet, and that he hit the back of his head when he landed, and that's why the autopsy report said that all of his skull fractures and injuries originated from one blow to the back of the head. So if he was holding that glass from the bar and his cell phone, that would be why his phone was underneath him and there was glass around him and on the bumper.
So 62 feet, 24.2 miles per hour.
Yes.
24.24 miles per hour is top speed in reverse.
What does that mean?
That means it takes a minute to get the fuck up to 24.2 miles an hour. If he just got out of the car.
Right.
Right?
Right.
If he just got out of the car and he walked around the back, he is 2-3 feet.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because he was in the passenger side and he was supposedly hit from the passenger side rear of the car.
Okay.
So yeah, he would have barely made it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he would have been like 2 or 3 feet. So I'm thinking 5 miles an hour, maybe, if that.
Could have done it. How would she been able to go 62 feet at 24 miles an hour? If he was behind her.
That's what I'm saying.
With no crash
detection.
Did
he get out of the car and take off running?
Exactly. And there was no crash detection. Don't these all have sensors all around them?
Well, a lot of them do. But the whole thing is she was at their house. So they was at their destination.
Right.
So he could get out of the car, go straight up to the house.
He could. He would. Yeah.
Which means she did a 3-point turn to their house.
Yeah. So they were in front of the house and she backed up to get out, did a 3-point turn.
Because they said that he was basically at the end of the driveway.
No, he wasn't at the end of the driveway. He was in the property. So here's the property.
Yeah.
That's the house. That's the driveway over there. He was found over here between the light pole and the fire hydrant. So he's over here on the other side. So they're saying that she backed up and hit him and he was thrown to the other end of the property. So
that would mean that reverse for 62 feet. That means he would have had to take off walking away from the fucking house for her to reach 24.2 miles per hour. And then it would throw him another 30 feet. So that'd be 90 feet away from the house. So what was the point of even going to that house if he was just going to get out and take off walking?
No, he was supposedly.
That's what I'm saying.
I know.
He's too far away from the house.
He was pretty far away from the house.
That's what I'm saying. He's too far away from the house, which is telling me that it did not happen that way. So she went home, then went out to look for him,
Right.
then drove to her parents' house. Then they brought the SUV back to the police station, and the glass and one hair stayed on the car
Right. That's what we were talking about earlier.
all together.
That whole time.
That whole time,
Just
the whole time she's out driving around looking for him.
Right. And they have surveillance footage of her driving past the bars, checking the bars again, and stuff like that before her other two friends were with
And
her.
the surveillance, did it show broken taillights?
That is another big point of debate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But it's also why the defense was calling that the magic hair. They called it that the whole trial.
Well, I mean, if it was a hit, I could see where the hair would get, if the taillight was busted, I could see where the hair could get snagged into the broken taillight.
Just one?
Yeah, it'd be multiple. It wouldn't be a single hair, but yeah.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, this is a bullshit. This is a bullshit made up.
This is why this is in the conspiracy theory week.
This is a big cover up if I've ever seen one, because a single fucking hair and the glass that the guys stole from the bar. And
Karen supposedly stole one from the first bar they went to, too. That's another point of contention. But so they asked about all this in trial. And Maureen Hartnett, the forensic scientist for the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab, was asked how these pieces of glass hung onto the SUV for about 60 miles of travel in a blizzard. And she said, quote, "I don't know when the glass pieces ended up on the bumper, so I couldn't say, lady. I'm pretty sure your side is saying that they had to be there when she hit him with the SUV, so just after midnight. Saying she didn't know when they ended up there, kind of showing doubt as to that's what actually happened."
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, so she didn't help, that lady.
And was the glass just kind of laid on the bumper?
From everything I've seen, they are saying that it was frozen to the bumper. So like, if she hit him and there was liquid in the glass, the liquid, and because it was so cold and in the middle of a snowstorm, it froze really quickly. And that's what froze those pieces to the bumper.
Yeah, okay.
Now, the defense questioned the pieces of taillight found at the scene, too. They found 3 pieces of it at 5:30 that evening. Then more was found on February 3rd. And even more was found on the street outside of the Alberts house on February 4th. So for like a week, they're finding pieces of this taillight.
Oh, this taillight's just shedding its fucking skin the whole damn time.
Right.
Yeah. It's just driving around, just falling.
Just randomly falling off.
So.
And she said, like I said, the taillight wasn't damaged to her knowledge. And there is home surveillance footage, just what you were talking about earlier, of her leaving the house to go look for John at around 5 a.m. The driveway is along the side of the house, and John's vehicle is parked in the driveway. She is seen backing out of the garage and hits his car. You can see the wheel move on his car up a little bit, as it would if it was in park and it was hit. But as she drives off, you can see that the taillight is still intact on her SUV. Now that's at 5 in the morning. If she hit him hard enough to do all that damage to him and leave all them pieces of taillight at the scene, how could her taillight still be intact at 5 o'clock the next morning? And then there's Brian Higgins.
The ATF guy.
The other Brian. He read out some texts in court that he and Karen had shared. He said that Karen had got his number and started texting him in January of 2022, so right before John's death. She texted him that he was hot, and he confirmed that she was being serious before telling her that the feeling was mutual. She would text him, "Come over to my house." Now, he had been friends with John for about a year, and he had considered Karen a friend too. John and Karen were always together, so as he and John hung out, there was Karen. One Saturday night in January, Higgins was at John's watching a Patriots game, and Karen kissed him. Not like a friend, he said, lip to lip. He was the first to leave the party that night that John died, and says he didn't see John at all at the house. He said Karen told him that she never wanted kids, and the fact that John had his niece and nephew was complicating the relationship. Sorry, lady. You want to date a man with kids? You get a man with kids.
So they were starting up an affair?
Sounds like it, yeah.
I mean, they wasn't married.
No, nobody was married.
So, I mean,
but, texting your boyfriend's friend. That's gross.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is like, what's the point? Just if you didn't want to be in a relationship with a guy with kids, then fucking get out.
Plus, they were saying that John was saying that this relationship was at its end and she wouldn't leave. So she's the one that was holding it up, and now she's the one trying to start an affair.
Anyway.
Wild.
I gotcha.
And he even texted her a flirty text when they came into the waterfall that night, but she never responded. So a potential affair is another strike against her in a murder trial. But as we've already touched on, the prosecutors were making the best with what they had because the investigation looks really suspicious. We need to talk about the investigator, Trooper Proctor. His personal cell phone records were presented in court, showing him just 16 hours into the investigation, telling a group chat full of his old high school buddies that Karen was a babe but had no ass. He said she was a cunt. He made fun of her accent and made jokes about her anus. Darren's making a face right now. I'll tell you why. He admitted on the stand that he did not know that she had Crohn's disease and multiple sclerosis. He didn't know that she had had 10 surgeries in 18 months, and he apologized for his unprofessional behavior. He also...
What's the point in an investigation to make fun of somebody on a freaking chat?
That just shows the kind of person he is. I mean, if you could read some of the stuff...
That should have shown like a conflict of interest.
There's so much conflict of interest.
Yeah, I mean, the narrator should threw his investigation out completely.
And this was to people who weren't even involved in the case. These were old high school friends. And he was, I mean, there's so much in these texts. Like, it's just tragic. He also acknowledges that in the chat that the homeowners, which would be the Alberts, won't be investigated.
Of course not. Wonder why.
Well, because Brian, being a former cop that was held in such high esteem, and his brother was an active cop at the time. Brian Higgins was also there, and he's ATF. So even though the cop that was killed in their yard was a cop, they still were like covering for the other cops. Is that not weird?
Just wasn't part of the group.
Like the guy who died was also a cop. Why are you not investigating this? And Proctor has been keeping his sister updated on case developments. His sister is friends with Julie Albert, which is Brian's sister-in-law. The two women had even had lunch before Trooper Proctor questioned her. And after that lunch, his sister texted him saying Julie was going to buy him a present when all of this was over for being a good little investigator. Just kidding. It was to say that they were proud of him or some shit. And Julie had told authorities that the two women rarely even talk. But phone records show that they had 67 calls between them from February 1st to September 6th in 2022. Also, Proctor had John's clothes in his office to dry out for like a week. So that's another issue. The chain of evidence is shit.
So the guy basically leads the investigation, has a lot of reasons to keep them out of it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. There are so many ties between the Proctors and the Alberts that he had, like you said, so much conflict of interest. He should not have been on this case.
I mean, if the courts have all this information.
This all came out in court.
This right here should have been thrown out.
Well, I haven't told you what happened at trial.
Oh.
So this, like I said, is the conspiracy aspect. There were all these little ties with the family, both professional and personal. And we see that everywhere, along with other stuff. But the defense is that something happened to him in that house, possibly a fight, and the marks on his arm, remember, how could I explain those, actually came from their family dog, Chloe, causing that damage to his arm. And then he was taken outside and left. And that the pieces of taillight were planted by the cops. Darren called that like an hour ago. They even showed a video in court of the SUV at the Canton Police Department with some cops hanging out, meandering around the back of the SUV. They said it was clearly the driver's side that they were on, and the damage was on the passenger side. So that video didn't prove that they were actually damaging the taillight at that time. But looking at some writing on other vehicles and the garage door, you could clearly see that it was an inverted image. So someone had flipped it and then corrected the timestamp part of it to make it look like it was a legit image. And you can even see the driver pull the car in and get out of the car after pulling it into the garage. And it looks like he got out of the passenger side. It's the most obvious thing. And dude was on the stand saying, this is an accurate video. But the defense lawyers were like, oh, yeah, what about this? And they presented all that about the inverted image. And then they admitted it was actually inverted. So there's video of the SUV at the police department in the garage with a bunch of cops around the passenger side taillight. So defense is saying that's when they damaged the taillight.
Oh, yeah. No, I already knew.
Well,
So is that, but it was at the police station.
it was at the police station. Yeah, they're saying that that's proof that they were doing something.
Yeah, so they got their pieces of taillight and everything, and then they started scattering them across town and everything.
Mm-hmm. And the defense attorneys did say, now who's that cop that's standing back there by himself? And it was Trooper Proctor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Lots of things are not adding up. I'll give you some more. There was no blood on the SUV.
Figures.
Not even on the taillight. I mean, if it ripped his arm up like that, remember he had all them gashes on his arm, and the defense is like it came from the dog who was defending in a fight. You know what I mean? Because dogs get riled up and get involved.
Yeah.
The prosecutors are like, no, it happened when he got hit by that taillight and it busted and ripped his arm up. You would think there would be blood on the taillight.
Oh,
right?
no, absolutely.
But no. And remember the red Solo cups that they scooped the blood up in?
Mm-hmm.
They never tested that blood to see if there was any other blood with it.
So surprising.
Mm-hmm. And then John's Apple Health data shows that he took 80 steps and went either up or down the equivalent of 3 flights of stairs between 1222 and 1224.
What stairs was he using?
Well, exactly. If he was killed in the yard and never went into the Alberts 2-story house with a basement, what stairs was he using? Prosecutors say that these trackers are not accurate about 33% of the time. But are they so inaccurate that they would show you going up and down stairs?
Actually, they are pretty accurate.
33% of the time they're not, according to prosecution.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the Bryans. You got Albert and Higgins. Higgins said he was first asleep that night, remember? So that was at about 12:30 to 1 a.m., somewhere around in there. But at 2 a.m., there's a couple of short phone calls between the Bryans. Albert called Higgins, and then Higgins called Albert back. The longest call was only 22 seconds, but they say that these were butt dials. Albert's butt called Higgins, and then Higgins' butt called him back. I don't think that's how butt dials work. But I also don't know what they would have talked about for all of 22 seconds. So believe in that which will.
Hello, it's me.
Maybe their phones were messed up. I don't know. And maybe that would explain why right before they were ordered to turn their phones over to the investigators, they both got new phones. Higgins said in court that he didn't destroy his phone and SIM card. He just threw it away. As an ATF agent, I would hope that he knows how evidence works. Brian Albert said he didn't destroy his either. He just happened to trade his phone in and upgrade the day before he was supposed to turn it into the cops.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
How do people think they can get away with this?
And these are cops.
Actually,
these are
they,
cops.
You know what? They did.
You don't know.
Oh, I don't know yet.
How do you don't know how the case came out, right?
No, I don't.
So you don't know.
These motherfuckers, they are.
I can tell you they haven't seen any charges yet.
It's so obvious.
Oh, it gets worse.
I was sitting there buttoning down the freaking investigation
From the start.
From the start, just by listening.
From the start. That's why I was so intrigued with you. So let's mention a couple more things. Remember the family dog. So this is Chloe, the German Shepherd. This is the Alberts family dog. She wasn't a new pet. She had been in the family for some time at this point. But right before they could get DNA from her to test the marks on John's arm, the Alberts rehomed her. They said it was because of a few incidents of her attacking others, but not John though. So they got rid of their family dog and don't know where it is.
Guarantee you what it was, that they was in there doing their little slap box.
Right.
The dog thought it was a threat.
Right.
Because I'm sure Chloe is probably
trained.
Ex-police dog.
Probably, yeah.
More than likely, it's an ex-drug dog.
We can assume.
And it seen that.
Goes to defend the owner.
Went to defend the owner.
Absolutely.
And whenever that guy was throwing a fit about it, that's whenever all this shit went down.
Right. Because I'm going to show you a picture of John's arm. This is John's arm.
Oh, yeah. No.
And they're saying that happened
No.
When he got hit by the
No,
SUV.
that right there that is teeth and claw marks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's... Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Now, they also, the Alberts, had their basement floor redone about 4 years before this incident, but for some reason, they redid it again right after John's death.
Oh, maybe to cover up all the blood?
Maybe. And then they sold the house altogether for $50,000 under their asking price.
Well, trying to get out of it pretty quick, are you?
Mm-hmm. They said it was just because they wanted to downsize.
Yeah. Well, it almost sounds like someone is letting them know when something is coming up so they can avoid it. The phones, the dog, the house.
Yeah, they seem to be doing things right before they're investigated.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it
Pretty
sounds like
convenient.
they're getting fed
Mm-hmm.
some information. Old Proctor.
Proctor. And we need to talk about, that was really weird. I'm editing that out.
Are you?
Proctor.
Yeah.
We need to talk about 2 more people and then we'll stop. This could go on forever, this case. There is Brian Albert's nephew, Colin. He was at the party that night and left around 1 a.m. Sometime after this, he was seen with damage to his knuckles. He said it was from him falling down in the driveway. They also showed videos in court of him threatening to beat up other people, even though Colin said he'd never been in a fight in his life. So they're painting him to be someone with violent tendencies that could have been involved in whatever altercation they say happened at the house that night. But I will say that everything that I saw for the damage to his knuckles that he was talking about, they were saying it was like a month later. So I really doubt that there was still damage from a month before. I don't know. But also shows his ties to Trooper Proctor's family as well. It was a picture of Proctor's sister's wedding from 10 years ago, and there's little Colin Albert as the ring bearer. And they really tried to downplay the closeness of these 2 families, but it's obviously not working. Darren picked up on it immediately. Not that it wouldn't, that sounded bad. It's so obvious that anyone who's even not familiar with the case is like, that's really odd. And we're going back to Jennifer McCabe. She's been throughout this case, but there was a now famous Google search that she made. Defense says that it was at 2:27 a.m. that she searched. It's supposed to say how long to die in cold, but she mistyped it. So it's like hose long or hose long. I don't even know how you'd say HOS, long to die in the cold. And I say it like how she said it because this was actually put on t-shirts and worn at the courthouse during the trial. Like this saying, people were outside with these to show support for Karen Read. Yeah, hose long. The other side said that this search was actually done at 6:23 a.m. when they had found John, and she only Googled it because Karen told her to. And the expert said that the reason that it showed up at 2:27 was because that's when the tab was created that she used to make the search, not when the actual search was done. And this would have been right when first responders arrived because it is reported that they arrived at 6:24. So I guess she stopped doing CPR and immediately took to Google.
So I don't see where they could have found her guilty on all this other shit.
Right. And they didn't. So they came back with a hung jury in July for Karen. She will be retried next year in 2025, though.
Why?
Because it's a hung jury. So that just means they couldn't come to
all the freaking
unanimous visit.
all the evidence, all the tampering, all the everything. It's obvious. And the judge just needs to take control of it and be like, this is bullshit.
Well, a lot of people, there's a split on this one. A lot of people are on Karen's side. They're like, she might not be a great person. She might have been a clingy girlfriend or whatever, but that doesn't mean she killed him. And the other side is like, she only created this conspiracy theory of the cops doing it to get off.
But they got all the evidence showing that the cops did it.
Well, some people don't see that as evidence that they did it.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Good night.
Brian Albert's brother, who was an active cop, remember, was removed from duty. And Trooper Proctor is under investigation now, too. But between this and the Sandra Birchmore case we just covered, that was also in Canton, it seems that the corruption runs pretty deep around here. And they won't be able to get a conviction ever if they keep doing investigations this way. In August, John's family did file a wrongful death lawsuit against Karen and the 2 bars that they were at that night for basically over-serving and letting them go around drunk, which really puts her in a pickle. If she doesn't testify at the civil trial, that's not good. And if she does, then they can use that in the criminal case. So they're really putting the pressure on her. They allege that she made up the conspiracy theory, like I said, saying that at relevant times after 7:50 a.m. on January 29th, Defendant Reed went to the grieving house of JJ, feigned comfort to JJ's family, and used the opportunity to, amongst other things, remove the offending weapon, her vehicle, and/or destroy relevant evidence. This is coming from John's family. So that case could be pretty interesting as well to see how it turns out.
Yeah, but the family really needs to go back and really look at everything.
They have been there since the beginning. They've seen
I know,
all this.
but they really need to, they need to take out, I mean, it's hard to say take out the emotion.
Oh, that's not going to happen.
It's really hard to say that, but
yeah,
you really need to open your mind and look at this with eyes wide open.
Eyes wide open.
Because I've never heard this story until you told me.
Right.
You showed me some surveillance videos.
I showed you the video of her supposedly hitting his car to see if you saw that it was hit too.
But you didn't really go into any kind of detail on it.
No,
you
I
just
wanted
asked
this to be
me.
a surprise.
Yeah. But just from listening to it and everything else, I mean, yeah, she's not a great person, but did she do it? I really don't think so.
Right.
I think that the cops were band together and they was protecting each other.
They're brothers in blue.
Yep.
And a lot of people think that.
Was it Blue Line Mafia?
It's the Blue Line Mafia.
Yeah.
What? But that's it for this one. John's poor kids. They have already had so much loss.
Yeah.
And now they've lost John too.
And where are they at now?
They're with his family.
So they're with his parents and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. At least it's not good, but at least they went somewhere.
Yeah, they're taken care of for sure. But it was really hard for them to get through this trial. And they had to testify too. So it was really, really tough. I always hope the truth comes out on these cases, and this one's no exception. This poor family really needs some justice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it for this one. Hopefully those cops get their investigation and they get shown for what they are.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Catch us on the next one.
Bye.